La la. Hello peeps and welcome back to Project Hospital. Welcome back to campaign 3, where we've been following Jessica Young. Only problem is that I can't remember why. It's been a little while since I had my last recording session, and I cannot remember why we were following her. But there we are. And the game will keep us up to date because we've made her a favourite. The game will keep us up to date with what's going on with Jessica. Now, I have been wanting to do deeper, more in-depth looks at different aspects of the game, and I asked you lovely peeps via my Patreon, my Discord, and also through the community on this channel what you would like to see from this game, or if you're just happy to have deeper looks rather than just carrying on with what we've been doing, given that, you know, if I stopped spending the money, we would make this and the hospital would be done anyway. So, and I feel like there's lots in the game that we haven't really looked into in depth, you know. And lots of people want to know how a lot of things work. So we should do that. That's what we should totally do. And one of the things that you guys mentioned, and one person in particular said, yes, I want these deep looks, but I really want to know more about the nurses first and foremost. And I agree. So the nurses are sort of the life force of your hospital. So I thought we might start with wards. We've been having a lot of to do with wards, and I thought maybe we would look at wards, the nurses that work on them, and the patients that come through them, so that we can really understand what goes on here. And it'll allow us to also look at the allowed roles for nurses as well. They have a whole bunch of allowed roles. So first of all, what I'd like to cover is wards in general. So there are, how many? There's probably 5 different wards in the game. However, these departments here, general surgery, internal medicine, orthopedy, cardiology, and the neurology department all have the same wards. It's repeated throughout all the departments. And what are those 2 wards? Well, let's have a look. So I think this is actually internal medicine here at the bottom. It is. These are the wards that we made very quickly to try and fit in more patients. What is it now? Oh, okay. So let's have a look here. And we can see that in the hospitalisation section, we have the regular ward, which is this one here. We can see because it matches the logo. And then we have the high dependency unit. And again, that's the one here. So all these departments have these 2 wards. So the regular ward is for sort of low-level patients. They're probably just coming in for some drugs, a bit of observation, and then they'll be leaving again. No biggie. And then your high dependency unit. So these are going to be patients that are a little bit more high risk. They might have a high risk of collapse. They may need more complicated procedures than those that are just in the regular ward. So they need closer monitoring. So the difference between a high dependency unit and a regular ward is the addition pretty much of this one item here. If we look at the items that goes into a ward, you have your beds, your bedside tables. They all need at least one defibrillator in there, but the high dependency unit also needs this life monitor. And you can see there's 2 options here. There's the cheapo option, which is still 1,600 doubloons. And then the life monitor advanced, which is 2,000 doubloons. So it does a better job at just controlling the patient's vital signs, is what it says here. So this is the only addition that makes this a high dependency unit over this one being a regular ward. That's the only difference. Okay, now, but there are some other wards. Now, radiology and the medical laboratories don't actually have their own patients. These are support departments for everything else. Patients come here for a quick bit of testing and they go back to the department they came from. So they don't have wards. But you have the emergency department, which is just a little bit different. but also kind of the same. They're just called different things. So the equivalent of the regular ward in emergency would be your observation room, which is this one here, and then the equivalent of the high dependency unit is going to be your trauma centre. Now, what is the difference? Why are they different? So with emergency, I mean, it is just that. So people tend to come into emergency because they have collapsed and they're in the process of dying. They've been rushed in through an ambulance. So they tend to come here because they need help critically now, or they will die. They very rarely just walk into this room and lie down. That's not really something that goes on. And again, with the clinic, it tends to be patients that come here that have absolutely no idea what's wrong with them, and the emergency department, by and large, will filter them off to the correct department to deal with the ailment that they have. So this is very much an emergency type basis, accident and emergency, if you like, at your hospital. They come in here, generally rushed in here by other doctors and ambulance and stuff like this, because they need attention right now. So the staff in this department is very important. These patients cannot wait. They need attention right now, because they're bleeding out or whatever, or having a heart attack or something like that. And then they tend to go on to observation, where they're just kept a close eye on, and then they generally from here tend to move to the appropriate department for their illness, although sometimes emergency have what's required to deal with it, and they tend to just do it when they do. What I would say about the trauma centre as well is that it is massively equipped compared to a high dependency unit. It's got a lot more equipment on it because they're trying to deal with things in an emergency basis, and a whole catalogue of things. Like, they will deal with a wide variety of problems, just to try and quickly stabilise the patient and then move them to where is more appropriate for them. So we have the trauma centre, and then we have the observation ward, which, easily translates into regular ward and high dependency unit, but they generally don't stay in these two departments, in these two wards, for very long. Which leaves us with one more ward, which is the intensive care unit, which is pretty much the entire department is just a massive ward. So once they have come to one of these other departments over here, and they're on their wards, should they collapse and things become critical, it becomes too much for whatever department they're in generally to deal with. It becomes a real emergency situation. They don't go back to emergency though, because that's for fresh new patients. They will come to the ICU, where they can have very specific care, and again, a wide variety of care. And you can see that again, this is massively equipped, like the trauma centre. They're very, very similar. The ICU and the trauma centre are almost identical. It's just that this tends to be patients that are already registered into the hospital and have come from another ward, whereas the trauma centre tends to be patients that haven't yet been admitted to the hospital and they're being admitted right now and need urgent attention. So that's probably the difference. This is end game, whereas the others is start game. So and that's about it really. And again, the staff on this ward need to be instantly available, because when patients are rushed into here, they are just that. They are an emergency being rushed in, they are collapsing, they will die, and they need attention right now. Nobody comes in here casually like. So there they are, the wards, the variety of wards that we have, by and large pretty much the same throughout. So we're going to stick with internal medicine. We've been doing a lot here, and as I say, this is pretty much exactly the same as all the other wards around the hospital. So just monitoring this ward will tell us pretty much what we want to know. Now, so forgetting the patients for a moment, let's come straight to the nurses, because we like the nurses. We're currently on our night shift, so we're going to start. It'll be actually really quite nice sorting out the nurses that we have. So these are all the nurses that we have on night shift from the nurses station, and they have all these allowed roles but they don't actually need to have all these switched on. In fact, it's probably not a very good idea to have them switched on. So let's go through them, shall we? So for a start, we have 2 surgery nurses, and we can see here by this little icon that these are our 2 surgery nurses. Nurse surgery, nurse surgery. So I want these 2 nurses to work in surgery only. I don't want them to take time out from their day for patient care, and I don't want them moving patients around. They are purely to be available when a surgery is to take place, which I believe is upstairs. I don't want them not able to get a surgery underway because they're too busy doing other things. I want to keep them free for surgery only. So let's put those to one side. And you do need 2 surgery nurses in order for an operating theatre to work. So there they are. And look, we've got the daytime. Let's do the same for the daytime. So we can whittle down the nurses that we're going to be looking at today. This way, this will be good. Now, then you can see that we have 3 nurses here at night that all do patient care and patient transfers, and we're actually going to separate these roles, and because we'll really get down to the nitty gritty of what these nurses are doing. Now, we can see here that probably Karen here, out of these 3, is our best for taking on patient care, and we'll look into what that actually means, what she will actually be doing in a moment. But she'll be doing patient care. We can see here that Jordan has no specialisation at all, and his patient care is quite low, so we're going to put him on to patient transfers only. And with Barbara here, I mean, she does have this specialised trait, but you know, Karen has it just a little bit higher, and she also has the nice staff modifier. So Barbara, I'm sorry, but you're going on to patient transfers. So let's concentrate on what Karen is doing, shall we? She's coming into work, everybody. She's coming into work. We will have to, while we're taking these deep dives, these in-depth looks at different aspects of the game, we are going to have to also try our best to run the hospital, and that's a point actually. I have the hospital generally on high certainty, right? What this means is that well, it says there, setup value of certainty, which will be used to confirm diagnosis. So anybody that's been watching the series up until this point will note that I tend to put all my departments on high because I micromanage what's happening. I cancel unnecessary tests when I'm happy that they've reached the diagnosis certainty, and then administer the meds. However, I'm not going to be micromanaging this hospital anymore, so what I would like to do is reduce the certainty to medium. I could go to low, and it means that a lot of patients would come in the door. They would probably have a couple of very meagre low-level tests. The doctor would take a wild guesstimate at what is wrong with them, give them meds for them, send them home, and chances are is that a large portion of those patients would return the following day being misdiagnosed and still unwell. Now with medium, you do tend to get a fairly sensible diagnosis. You tend to do more tests, so it takes a little bit longer to get the patients through. You get a couple of mixed diagnoses, but it's not too bad. Medium works quite well if you're trying to get the hospital to run on its own. So we're going to put almost all of the departments, as I'm not going to be micromanaging it anymore, onto medium, except the ICU, which we are going to leave at high, because of course when they're in the ICU, their lives are in danger, and we want all the tests they could possibly get to really make sure that we found all the problems and that they are being stabilized. Now we're still going to get things pop up, but it will certainly help reduce it. So we can see that when they're on patient care, Karen Rodriguez, her entire world now becomes the patients that are on the ward, and she works in internal medicine, so she will now take care of all the patients that are on the internal medicine's regular ward and the high dependency unit, the HDU. So that includes checking of patients, which she is doing right now, and she gets a little bit of experience, I think. Yeah, there we see she got a little bit of experience for every patient that she checks. And if we come over to this patient, we can see, look, her satisfaction levels, professional care, nice staff. So we know that nice staff, for example, is coming from the fact that Karen spoke to her and that Karen has this pleasant trait, which means that she will give the nice staff modifier to the patient, and it just helps increase the patient's satisfaction. This is a really nice quality for a ward nurse to have, this particular trait. So that's really, really lovely. So she is coming round and she will check on all of the patients. So that's one of the jobs that Karen does as a ward nurse. Now, something that I have noticed about this ward is there's a piece of equipment missing from the nurses' station, which would really help Karen ward out a great deal. And we'll get to that, I think, in a moment. Because as we can see, she walks around these patients and she's checking on every single patient that's here. And then she goes back to her office. She walks all the way back here and types on her computer. And she's coming back to check patients, right? So she walks all the way back. She's checking patients. So, a nurse has leveled up. So this nurse is working, on the ICU. She's decided to become a clinical nurse specialist. And you know what? I'm happy with that. That absolutely works fine for me. We're going too fast. What is this? Let's have a look here. So bed required for examination, MRI. She doesn't need an MRI. We have no pulsating symptoms. We know what the diagnosis is. So we'll resolve this situation by just saying, well, don't have one then. And it's the same here for this lady. Yeah, no pulsating issues. Just do all those things. There we go. Excellent. So she checked on more patients and then she came all the way back to her office. So we can see that to make Karen more efficient, it might be better if she was closer to these wards. Wow, there's something going on with the MRI, isn't there? If she was closer to the wards. So close, in fact, I might actually put a nurse's station right in the ward, and that's the magic of this game, is that you can actually do that. So she's back to checking patients. She does do other things. I wish that she would show us those other things that she'll do. Lab procedure uncovered. Oh look, it's our favourite patient, Jessica Young, and we now know what's wrong with her. Let's give her this diagnosis, and she's going to need IV, antibiotics via IV. So what we'll do, she's already on internal medicine, so we're going to put her into the regular ward just here, and we will give her treatment along with some medicines just to deal with these other symptoms, because we have a comfort thing going on here with patients, and we can see here that she has discomfort from her fever. Okay, this is creating discomfort for her. Now, she's also received discomfort from some of the testing that she's been through. And there are ways of dealing with that, but we won't worry about that until a later episode when we're covering diagnosing patients. But for now, because we're on the ward, we can deal with any symptoms that are causing her discomfort, like fever. And we can see here that these meds will help. These ones here will help with fever, which will increase her discomfort and therefore her satisfaction as well. So when they're on the ward, I just tend to load them up on drugs because, you know, the happier the better. So where were we? Yes, so Karen is checking patients. So to make her more efficient, I think it would be nice if she didn't have to keep walking back to her desk over here. Wouldn't that be great? So what we're going to do is we're going to modify this just a little bit. That's what we're going to do. We're actually going to take out these two rooms here, for I have plans. So we are going to create a little nurse's station, and it's amazing if you make a nurse that deals with patient care on a ward, if you make her job very easy and efficient, You don't need many of them. One can do a lot. So we are going to, we're on the intensive care for some reason, we're going to come back to internal medicine. Nurses station. So now the minimum size of a nurses station is 3x4. So we're going to pop that there like this. And you can see that it says missing equipment and missing staff. Well, that's fine. So let's deal with that situation, shall we? First of all, I think what we might do is just remove this window. Something else I did since the last episode is I actually fixed all the decoration of the hospital on the opposite side. Took ages. It took ages. But it means now that we can fix these rooms up nicely. So we're just going to extend, I think. Oh, no. Can we not? Can we not? I'd like to... No? It won't let me. There'll be a reason. Oh, we have no money at the moment. Okay, that's fine. It's wrong time of the night to be building. So we're going to pop this here. There we go. Now, we can see here we have items in orange. Orange means this item is required in this room. You have to have it. What I would say, though, is that this equipment cabinet, the wall-mounted equipment, the equipment cabinet tool, and the mobile cabinet are all the same item. So you only actually need to put one of these in, and then all four of these are satisfied. And I'll show you what I mean. So we're going to put a desk in because she also must have a PC. And a PC, when it's blue, you can see the PC is blue, and that's because it needs a chair. She can't use it without a chair, and you can see that that chair turns blue when we pop that there because it needs it. It's now connected to this PC. So, and then at a minimum we also have to have one of these cabinets. Do you know what? We will probably put in the mobile one because it's just a little room. It's just a little room here, and that's absolutely fine. And then we've got some yellow items here, which is you don't have to have them to make the room function, but they are recommended items. Now, we're not going to put a stretcher in, but we are going to put in a meal tray. Our nurse here, she won't be moving patients, so she doesn't need a stretcher, but a meal tray would be really good because, we do have one here, so that's something. I didn't think it actually had one in here, but one of the things that a ward nurse does is she will feed the patients. Now, they can get up out of their bed when they're dealing with their needs, and they'll go to the vending machine and stuff like that, but it only buffs their food and hunger a little bit compared to a nurse with a meal tray that will bring them proper meals, and that makes them really happy. All right, so we're going to pop that in as an additional thing for her. In fact, what we might do, we might actually pop it over this side. Is what we'll do. So now what we're going to do is move Karen over to here. Okay, so this is now going to be her desk. So instead of going all the way back over here, she's now on the ward. Yes, she still needs to walk over to this one, but it's not too bad. You know, it's a shorter walk now. So what we'll also do is work out our daytime nurse as well, I think. So we have these 2, 3. So we've got our surgical nurses. So who's going to be our best? It's going to be Mary Moore. She's going to be our daytime patient care. So we'll put her at this desk as well. Mary Moore. There we go. And Dana here can go to patient transfers, and so can Susan Williams. There we go. Excellent. And then we'll play again. Okay, so she is now checking her patients, but when she's done, she'll come back to this desk instead, which means she's much closer to where she needs to be. And look, she's starting to level up because she's getting a lot of XP from checking over the patients. So that's really fantastic. She's now a nurse specialist, which is great. And can you see she's now come back to this desk, nice and close to the ward. And if we look at her satisfaction, she likes the environment, she likes her boss, she's entertained, and she's rested. Now, I happen to know that nice environment will disappear because she doesn't consider this little office here a nice environment. What would that would eventually drop off because the other room she considered a nice environment. It's very easy to make it a nice environment. Literally just put a plant on the desk, you know, or one of these little flowers, or even a lamp, and that's all that is needed for a member of staff to say, hey, this is a nice environment, I like where I work. That's it, that's all you need. Job's a good one. Now she's fulfilling needs. So we can see here that she needs the toilet and she's hungry, and she's now leaving the wards. Right? She's just leaving the ward. Where is she going? She's probably going all the way to the common room to get food. Okay, there she is. She's at the common room to eat, and she'll fulfill her needs over here. All right. Now, something else is that she'll also leave the ward to go to the toilet, which is a little bit annoying. In addition, patients. Let's talk about patients that are on the ward. Now, I believe that we now have Jessica. Look, here's Jessica. Jessica now sits on this ward. She's had a rough night. She's a little bit bored. Fast prescribing, nice staff, nice environment, short wait. I mean, you know, she's pretty good. She also has a modern bed. We've upgraded the beds. There's 2 types of beds you can put on a ward. So you can see here we've got this type of bed. But I've spent more money. Can we auto saving? I've spent more money on these beds, and it actually gives a little boost here. Has modern bed plus. So there's that, which is great. Now, when she gets up in the morning, when all these patients get up in the morning to deal with their toilet need, they're all going to leave the ward and move over to this toilet. I like the idea of perhaps having a toilet on the ward. I think that would be really, really nice. We're going to also keep the sofa and the TV and all that, because patients will sit down here and deal with their entertainment need. But what if we tried building a toilet right on... I'm trying to delete the walls like you would in The Sims, just holding control. So let's see. If we were to build... It makes it a little bit pokey, but we're testing out ideas, and we should also remove these windows. We do not want these windows in a toilet, do we? And maybe we would like different decoration in the toilet, something like this. And of course now we can spin the camera around and get this from a different angle, and we can see here there's a bit of wall there that isn't decorated. Okay, we're just going to try and make this efficient for everybody as possible. We're going to go with the white door. Also, should we put some tiling down on the floor for the toilets? Now, it's still registered room-wise as the ward, right? But that's okay. We're not going to change it to a toilet. And as I say, this is one of the glories of this game, is that you don't have to change it, and they'll still use it. So I've got to find it though. I've got to find the toilet. So here's the toilet. I've got to try and fit everything in. Let's try... We're going to need a sink. I don't think they need the mirror, but we'll put a mirror in. I don't think I think it is just decoration, the mirror. Yeah, it's just a decoration. Doesn't really mean anything. Now, if you don't put a hand dryer in the toilet, they will get a negative trait. Anybody that uses the toilet will come up saying, couldn't dry my hands. So always try to get a hand dryer in there. And it avoids this negative trait appearing. I wonder, I feel like a bin might be nice in here, but it just seems a bit close to the toilet, doesn't it? But it seems to accept it, but we won't put it in. So there we are. So we've now put toilets right on this ward, meaning that not only will Karen start to use these toilets, but the patients in the morning will also use them. She's checking patients again. What would be nice is to see the daytime nurse, because she tends to do just a little bit more work. But you can see she gains lots of experience while doing it, because every patient she checks, that's 10 experience. Now she's idle. And the more time that she's idle, the more time that she has available to her to, one, get her job done, like checking on the patients, but two, also dealing with her own needs, which hopefully will keep her rest and her satisfaction and everything high. You know, so you see she sits down and she can go and feel her needs. What is this? This is MRI again. This one does need the MRI. Interesting. So I wonder what's going on with the MRI. Should we just go and take a quick look here? Maybe there's no MRI staff at night. I would say that's very possible. So the MRI is this one here. The workload is high. It is saying the workload is high, and there is a guy working it. Okay, so it could be something else worth looking at is the nurses on the emergency department. So there's only one nurse working here at night. Okay. There's only one nurse working here at night. So let's get another nurse. Let's see. Yeah. So we're going to put Jessica here on patient care only because she's very good at that. And Nancy here is going to go on patient transfers only, and we're just going to see if that helps speed up the MRI issues. I think that's what we'll do. See if we can resolve that situation, because they actually do need to go to the MRI. So she's off fulfilling her needs again. Now, another thing that we could do to try and reduce how often she leaves here is make it so she can fulfill as many of her needs as possible from this very room. Now, this ward is a bit pokey, so it makes it a little bit difficult to demonstrate this, but we're going to give it a jolly good try. So for her to fulfill her needs, lunch always comes out quite well always works well from the fridge. She can get a proper meal from the fridge. In addition, having a coffee pot is really great for staff fulfilling their needs. They get a buff from having coffee and having a proper meal from their belly being full. What's also interesting is that you don't need to provide a table for them to sit down and eat. They actually get a bonus modifier from standing and eating, and we'll see that hopefully fairly shortly. Also, patients like to fulfill needs, so it might not be a terrible idea to pop a water cooler in here along with a vending machine right on the ward, because this is also good for our nurse fulfilling her needs as well as the patients, because the patients will use this as well. So we're trying to reduce any reason why the ward can't do what we want it to. So she's now here. She's back to checking on the patients. It would be really nice if we could just see the daytime nurse and what she gets up to. So it seems that the nighttime nurse only... Oh, look. He will be off to emergency. So it seems like only the nighttime nurse checks on patients. And she was... Is that... No. Yeah, there he is. Okay. Did he just collapse? I'm not sure. She stood by him for a while. It could have just been auto-saving. Back to checking the patients. Excellent. She gets so much experience doing that. That's absolutely fantastic. But can we get today? Let's skip today. So this is interesting. What I've noticed here is that Lisa Cole here began to collapse on internal medicine, and even though Karen doesn't have patient transfer, she absolutely did attend to Lisa Cole's immediate need and brought her all the way to the ICU. So that's interesting that she did actually take the time to do that, even though technically not her job. So it's nice to know that in an emergency situation that will occur. And she can now, I think she is going home. Okay, because we have arrived today. And we want to come to internal medicine. And at the moment, Mary Moore is commuting. So at the moment, nobody on the ward. Oh no, here she is. She has arrived. I'm not paying any attention to the rest of the hospital, so we're getting a lot of problems with patients. Look, lots of patients collapsing and all the rest of it. It's a bit of a problem because I'm rushing it. Now, I've noticed when it comes up saying performing, we tend to be dealing with some sort of a bug. She's supposed to be going over to Paul and dealing with him, but she didn't, which is a little bit of an issue, I feel. Karen Wright has just started to collapse, and we saw that Mary Moore here, first aid Karen Wright, so she knew before we did that Karen Wright was going to need help and attention. Everybody's collapsing. If we could get her to the ICU or the high dependency unit, sure, okay. And again, we've got this performing issue. Is somebody else coming? If a patient collapses on the ward, Mary is absolutely supposed to deal with it. I've never seen them actually mess before with stretchers. This is the first time it's ever occurred, and all the time I've been watching these, they don't normally do stretcher stuff. It's interesting. It started this time. It's never done it before, and I tell you, I've watched the nurses a lot. I have indeed. Right, yeah, I know they're spending a lot of time. That's because I'm not watching. It's amazing when you're not watching the hospital. But specifics like this, the problems that start rearing their ugly head. So she's checking her patients. Now, I wish they'd do something else. So something else that they do is also feed the patients. She's filling her free time, and she's actually decided to show that she's not going to be using the stuff on the ward. They do use it. Although she wanted to watch TV. And I have noticed that she won't use the TV on the ward. That is a thing. Although I have noticed if you put a bookcase on the ward, they do tend to deal with their interest that way, their boredom that way. So she's checking patients. I'd really like to show, oh look, she's using the toilet here. Please, Mary, can you feed the patients? It's now 10 o'clock. She's not doing it. Are the patients okay? Surely they're getting... There's not really... They're all collapsing for some reason. So are there no patients on the ward now? They've all collapsed and left because we're not monitoring anything properly at the moment. It's a real shame. We're not getting a nice example of this at all. Well, what is it now? He can't be treated. Why not? Does he need to be on the high dependency? He needs any ward. Hospitalization is required. Right, is something broken and I just haven't noticed? Not accessible. I have broken it. Okay. Well, this explains something then, doesn't it? So this will be because of this room. What we need to do... what we need to do is... Oh. Yeah. Remove that wall. Remove that wall. Will that help? Yeah. Let's fix it. Right. Okay. I didn't say the room was broken. Right. Okay. Now, can we? delivering medicine. So here's another job that they do. Finally, we're seeing something. She's now delivering medicine to this lady that's come onto the ward. So that's something else that nurses, and it does tend to typically be a daytime task. So new patients come on, they deliver medicine. There it is, which is why she needs this cabinet. And then there should come a point where she also, oh look, she leveled up. Woohoo! Because they do get experience from delivering medicine. Oh, a favourite patient. She was treated and went home. That is wonderful news, everybody. That is wonderful news. And delivering food. So here we go. So she went to the food cart. So if you don't have a food cart in your nurse's station, your ward nurse will not deliver food, which means your patients will get very thirsty, very hungry, and very grumpy about being on the ward. If you want to increase satisfaction by a good amount on your wards, make sure that your nurse's station has one of these food trays, because as I say, it's an optional item for the room. You don't have to put it in, but the benefits of having one is huge. So make sure that you do that so that these patients get their food. This patient here has got a drink. Can you see? That wouldn't be there if Mary didn't have her food cart. So yeah, so there's some tasks. We've finally seen some of these tasks. They check on patients, they deliver medicine, they deliver food if they have a food cart, and they don't normally do the stretcher business. It seems like there was some sort of an issue there. They don't normally do anything with stretchers at all. But if a patient does crash that is on the ward, they usually do run to them and wait for somebody to come along, like a doctor or something, or somebody with a stretcher to come and take them away. They will absolutely be there while it occurs. So I thought, how good would it be to design a ward that maximised patients' happiness and satisfaction, their entertainment and how comfortable they are. You can see here that these patients are bolstering their entertainment. A ward that would also help keep the ward nurse happy. And you can see that she can deal with a lot of patients just on her own if you maximise the efficiency of her job. So what I did is I decided to create a brand new ward, and I've saved it as a prefab, so if I ever come to do a sandbox hospital in the future, I will use them. So let's see here, how do I do this again? Here, they're here. We can see here that I've created, it's huge of course, I've created this ward here. We're going to pop it here. There it is. So I've created this ward. And you can see here that we have the way in and the nurse's office here at the door with all of her bits and bobs. A couple of stretchers because, and we'll get into stretcher nurses, they tend to mostly go between the ward and the diagnostic rooms, and they tend to take stretchers from or nearby the ward, and the same with the diagnostic rooms. So having it's possible that even two might not really be enough for this many beds, but it's definitely worth getting in a couple. Then we've got all the beds, and you can see I've actually made these spaces a little bit bigger so that we can just have the luxury of a chair, because I believe one of the things they plan to do with this game in the future is actually have visitors. So I'm allowing for that update to occur, I believe. We'll see if the visitors need anything else, and also making each area pleasant, nice environment by putting in the plant as well. And then you can see that we have a little area down here for patients to come and deal with their needs and go to the toilet, and the staff use this as well. And there's also, I've even put in a little door here so it can come out into a little balcony area if I wanted it to. And this ward deals, I've tested this ward out, and the ward nurse only leaves to either go home or sometimes go and sit, just idling. If she has free time to spare, she'll go and find a chair outside the ward and sit for a little bit, and you can't seem to stop that. She'll just go wherever she wants to do that. And I also did the same, but for a high dependency unit, which I've designed in such a way that it will just squeeze up next door to this ward, because as I say, all these departments have these 2 wards, so I've made it so that they will sit nice and neatly next to each other, and then I can rinse and repeat these 2 wards for all these 5 departments. One design fits all, so it'll be really nice getting these wards into play. And what I will do before the next episode is I will make sure that all the wards have these facilities in place, and that we have specific ward nurses looking after everybody. And we'll check that out in the next episode, and we'll also take another look at stretcher nurses and what they get up to, and what we might do to ease the workload for them. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the episode. If you did, please hit that like button. As long as you are here, why not take your first step on the path to total coolness by supporting me via Patreon. The cooler you are, the harder I work, which means even more SHIZWAH.